Thank you. I think in ANC, we believe before we start any meeting, we always pray. So I want to welcome a participant to take us through a short prayer. A volunteer.
Let's pray.
Thank you.
Father Almighty God, we thank you this morning. We thank you for all the participants who you have given us to meet. We thank you also for the life and for the gifts that you have given to us. Thank you, Father, for all good things you have done to us. As we start our meeting, we want to welcome you to join us. Be the chairman of this meeting. You know what we are going to undertake, and you know the reason as to why we are meeting now. We want to work together with you because you are the only person who can guide us and lead us. When we work together with you, all things are going to be possible and all things are going to be victorious. Thank you, our Father, for listening to us. Journey with us, and if we see the end of this meeting, we will not also forget to glorify and honor your name. It is in the mighty name of Jesus Christ we pray.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jemima, for those wonderful prayers. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everybody on board this morning. Our participants are drawn from the National Elections Board of ANC. We also have some of our key people. We have got Honorable Basil Mwakiringo, who has joined us. He is our organizing secretary. He is with us this morning. I want to take this opportunity also to welcome Roslyn Ogola, who is on the organ of the Elections Dispute Resolution Committee. We have got Nathaniel Mongare, who is our spokesperson and who is very, very resourceful to the party. So he is going to moderate with me. Then I want to welcome the chair of the elections board and all the other members. We also have Geoffrey Lidonga, who is one of our youth leaders, very, very strong. And he deals a lot with issues of social media, and therefore very important for him to listen to the issues that are going to be raised today so that he can propel them to the next level. So in today's meeting, as it has been said by Isaac, is that we want to look at the party nomination rules and processes. Remember, there's a bill that is in Parliament, and we want to take this opportunity to welcome Odede, who is going to take us through this very, very important journey. And I would like to urge our election board members that this is a very, very key and very important presentation, because when we do the party primaries, everything lies in the hands of the elections board. And therefore, it is important for them to know exactly what is going on, what is in the bill, what are the requirements, and for us to hold credible, fair party primaries. We also want to discuss the issues of strengthening political parties. Once we have fair and credible party elections, then we will have very strong parties, because everybody then will have faith, confidence in the political party. So it is important today that we listen keenly, then we are able to actually relate to what is going on in our party and be able to come up with proper processes. I think in our team, we also have a number of the election coordinators from the counties who are going to handle the primaries at the branch level, at the sub-branch level, and ward level. So we have a rich team today, and we want to believe that it will be very, very fruitful. I want to take this opportunity to thank CMD for finding it fit to bring ANC party on board, more so the elections board, so that we are able to discuss, to dialogue. Really, today's session should be a dialogue. So let us be open. Let us discuss issues. If there are any queries, Odede is there to answer. CMD is there to also assist. And I will also play my role. I want to thank Range. I can see Range Mwita, who is on board. Please, Range, karibu sana. Tumeshukuru uwe kwa mkutano wetu. Ni asante. So I think I would like to hand over this meeting to Roslyn Odede to take us through. Thank you. Karibu sana, Madam Odede. Thank you, Council.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Amani National Congress Party. It's a pleasure to be with you once again. I see familiar faces, very many. Good morning, Beth Michoma. Yes. Okay, so today, as we have been told, Isaac, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, let me do that.
Okay, thank you. As we've been told today, our discussion is on nominations. Basically, we are going to talk about nominations. It looked strange, the presentation, but I think it's the one. Yes, thank you. So I decided to structure it this way. I was actually asked to talk about the party primaries bill in itself, but I thought we've talked about it before already, and it gets to be a broken record when you talk about the same thing every day. So how I've structured my presentation today is to first of all start with the current regime. What's the regime around nominations for parties today? And there's a lot of law existing around that. And let's see what that is, because if the bill is not debated and passed, then we will be, the default clause is where we are at right now. We'll go back to the laws that are existing. And not that I'm wishing Senator Mwaura ill, but we know he's having problems with his party. He's actually been expelled and is one of the best nomination rules from all the political parties' nomination rules that I looked at, and did not need much work. So I think you're starting from a very strong footing as a party. So asanteni sana, karibuni. I hope you'll be able to interject where you think there's a reason to. I have no issues with that. Interject, and let's keep going. So Margaret, you'll help. Margaret, and you said who is helping us? Nathaniel. You'll help control that, but I'm open to people interjecting as we go along, so that we don't lose an issue that we think is really, really critical. So karibuni sana. So we start looking at the legal regime, the existing legal regime. What is the legal environment in which we are operating? Now, nominations, party primaries are part of the electioneering process in Kenya. In fact, it is the genesis of the electioneering process, because once we decide we're having an election on a certain date, the IEBC triggers the process by telling political parties, we expect you to hold your nominations by this day. We expect to have your list of candidates by this day, blah, blah, blah. So party primaries actually are the beginning of the election process, so to speak. And this is provided for quite a lot in the Elections Act. We have a lot of law in the Elections Act touching on how party primaries are to be conducted, what things that should be in place from a political party's end, and things like that. We also have the Constitution of Kenya, which is actually the foundation for representation. It sets out the seats for which parties, for which individuals can actually contest. It sets out the rights to vie as an independent or through a political party. It sets out the rights of groups to form into a political grouping called a political party, and via such, it sets out the foundation for coalitions. So the Constitution indeed also sets out representation. It also brings in the issue of two-third gender principle. It brings in the issues of persons with disabilities, minorities, marginalized people, ethnic minorities and the marginalized. It recognizes the youth, it recognizes women. So the Constitution is the foundation for representation, and it actually says representation must be inclusive. And hopefully then our political parties will ensure that they apply constitutional principles even when they do their party primaries, so as to give us an inclusive list. We have a few references in the Political Parties Act, especially around the Political Parties Fund and formation of keeping of registers and a few other issues like that. But parties also have their own nomination rules, as I said earlier, that you have very, very good nomination rules. So those nomination rules also apply as long as they are not inconsistent with the Constitution and statutes in Kenya. So that's the regime under which we are operating. And today I'll take us basically mostly through the Elections Act provisions on what is necessary for one to participate in our party primaries. So yes, if we can just go backwards in the slides. Back again. Okay, so first and foremost, anybody aspiring for aspiring to participate in the general elections and in party primaries must ensure that they meet the eligibility criteria. I won't go through the eligibility criteria today because that's not what I was going to present on, but we know the criteria that a president has to be a citizen, must have a degree, must have allegiance to no other foreign country, and things like that. So you must meet the eligibility criteria for the post for which you are aspiring. And I just thought I need to bring it to your attention that post 2017, all MPs and MCAs will be required to have degrees as per Section 22 of the Elections Act. So anybody who is aspiring to be a member of parliament or a member of a county assembly should have a college degree as well. So that's just one of the new things that people might be overlooking. It was amended before the 2017 elections, but its application was suspended to the next general election, which is 2022. So that's something we've got to be alive to for those of us who want to participate. Now, what does the law provide in terms of political parties? The political party is supposed to have nomination rules, which we have talked about. And a political party must submit its nomination rules to the commission at least 6 months before nomination of candidates. So we all know the elections are coming in August of 2022. So at least by January, so nominations are going to be around June or July. So we must ensure that by January, our nomination rules are completely good to go and we are ready to submit them to IEBC. Now, once you submit them to IEBC, the party cannot amend them. You can only amend them after 90 days, and that will be too close to the election. So it's important that what you submit, your nomination rules are right now cogent enough, ready for submission, so that you're not affected by the need to want to amend, and yet you're stuck by the law that you cannot amend within 90 days of submitting those rules to IEBC. So that is a crucial. Then the IEBC will look and review those rules to see that they are compliant. Because if you look at Schedule 2 of the Elections Act, it has guidelines for what needs to go into your constitution and partly there for your nomination rules. So it will look to confirm that they are compliant. If they're compliant, they will issue your party with a certificate of compliance. If they're not compliant, then it will require you to amend. And that's the only instance where you can amend within the 90 days because then you are amending to comply. And that is allowed. Next slide, please. Now, beyond what is existing, the law allows IEBC to issue regulations in which they prescribe guidelines be complied with, and the process by which parties will nominate candidates. So these guidelines can be published anytime between now and the nomination period or the nomination day or date, and parties are supposed to comply. And these guidelines are supposed to be what the party does, and if the party fails to do so, then their processes will be nullified, because then they're considered null and void. Once a party has filed its nomination rules, is ready to and has been given a certificate of compliance, then it has to then submit again to the IBC their party membership list. Now, the party membership list must be given to the IBC at least 120 days before the general elections. 120 days translates into 4 months. So again, we'd have to start thinking timelines here. As an election board, as a party, when should we have our register in order? Because once you submit that register to IBC, it is the register upon which you will conduct your party primaries. Anyone whose name is not in that register as at that time cannot participate in your party primaries. So you've got to start tidying up your register, ensure the register is up to date, ensure those who have failed to live and uphold the ideals of the party have been removed from the list, so that the list is actually something you can stand by as a party and say, this is our list. The commission will look at this list and then will publicize it. They'll publicize it on their website, and therefore people can go in there and find out whether they are party members and therefore apply to be either aspirants or as voters in your party. So it's important, therefore, to remember that we got to clean our party membership list at least by March of next year, so that we are ready to submit it to IBC. Now, the Elections Act also applies for appointment of agents, and it actually gives that that right to the party. The party has the first right to appoint agents. If the party does not appoint an agent, then the candidate can appoint an agent of their own in each polling station. So parties can actually decide we're going to appoint agents for all our candidates across the country if they and I suppose this can be done if candidates pay for it, support it, and then we have a holistic regime of agents across the country and ensure that at every polling station we have a representative. But then again, if the party fails to do so, the candidate has the right to nominate an agent. And when you're nominating an agent, it must be in writing, and then you must give the details to IBC so that they are given identity and rights to be at the polling station. An independent candidate also has the right to nominate an agent. Now, the nomination of candidates is also provided for in the Elections Act, and it says that for one to qualify to be nominated by a particular political party as a candidate, they must meet the provisions and requirements of the Constitution, and they must also meet the party rules in terms of that, so that whatever rules and regulations the party puts in place, they must meet them. And then the party must certify the nomination to the commission. So that's why it is always important who signs the certificate, who nominates. And it is very, very clear that that is something that needs to be done before one can be considered a candidate of a particular political party. Now, the law provides that the commission shall, and I underline the word shall, upon the request of a political party, conduct and supervise the nomination of candidates by the political party. What this means, therefore, is that the commission cannot refuse to conduct nominations for a political party. So if a party were to request IBC, and that's an option given to political parties, IBC must then conduct the nominations for that party. And there's provision that Parliament should make provision. Parliament should provide funds to IBC to ensure IBC actually has the capacity to carry out party primaries for a political party that requests them to do so. And then the list of aspirants must actually, not aspirants, the list of candidates who are successful in the party primaries should be given to IBC at least 60 days before the election. So that is a provision that is very difficult to comply with now because of the short timelines we are seeing towards the elections. And I think this is something that needs to be rethought out because 60 days before the election, sometimes party primaries have not even been completed. But normally parties try to ensure that primaries are carried out 90 days to the elections so that this 60 days is applicable. Next slide. Now, the list of aspirants for the party primaries should be sent to IBC 21 days, at least 21 days before the nomination day. That means just that parties should actually give people more than 21 days to apply so that they are able, as a party, you're able to then meet the 21-day deadline that IBC gives you in the law. The names of all aspirants are supposed to be published, and they're supposed to be published by IBC. And once these are published, they cannot be changed by the party. Those are the only aspirants who will contest at the party primaries on the day given. This list is supposed to be published at least 7 days before the date of the party primaries. Now, it provides here that only those who are on the register can vote, and I think I already mentioned that once you give a party register, it is only those whose names appear on the register who can vote. And then the provision is that where the commission, where IBC receives requests from more than one party to help with their nominations or to conduct their party primaries, then IBC can actually conduct those party primaries on the same day, so that 2, 3, or 4 political parties can actually have IBC conducting their party primaries on the same day, and they can actually use the same polling centers the law allows them. The only requirement is that they have different streams for different political parties. This is supposed to actually make it more affordable, more affordable for IBC, so that they actually use the funds once, pay the agents one, and conduct the nominations, party primaries on the same day. So where they receive multiple requests, where more than one party asks them and they agree to do so, then they can hold those primaries on a single day. And this is something that would properly happen if parties were to request. Next slide. Yeah, this is where it says Parliament shall appropriate money for effective implementation of party primaries. So Parliament should actually give IBC sufficient money to ensure IBC can actually conduct party primaries on behalf of political parties. And I think that is a very progressive amendment that was put into the IBC Act in about 2016, 2017. So every political party shall notify the commission of the name of the person authorized by the party to certify nomination certificates. And I think we've discussed this several times.
Good morning, everyone. We are going to have a Bible trivia, and we have 10 questions. And
Isaac Litali.
Isaac.
Thank you. At least he was talking about the Bible, so ni sawa tu. So yes, the party must give the name and specimen signature of the person authorized to sign the nomination certificates. And I think we've discussed this. It's also in your nomination rules. So I think that's something that is agreed upon. No, I think in your nomination rules, there was more than one person, so maybe you need to tidy that up still. And that person shall therefore issue a certificate to everyone who has been nominated by the party. He must certify in writing that X has been nominated to vie for the position of X in this county for the party. So that's what that person does, and they're saying it should be the name of a person authorized and the specimen signature given to IEBC. This is to rule out doubt and to rule out fraud and to rule out confusion, as was experienced in some years back. Now, they also provide for independent candidates. I know you're a political party, but some of you might just get the urge to move on and decide, I'm now leaving, I'm going to be an independent, and I just bring the rules around independence to your attention as well. An independent candidate must have their own symbol, and they must notify IEBC that this is the symbol I want to use, and they must do this at least 21 days before the deadline set for party primaries for everyone else. And if it's a vacancy arising midstream in the office of governor, they must do so at least 7 days before the nomination date. The commission can reject or approve the symbol, and they can actually reject the symbol if they think it's obscene or offensive, or it's similar to some other person's symbol or another political party symbol, or something that has already been copyrighted by some other entity. Then they will definitely reject it. Next slide. Now, when does a person qualify to be an independent? And looking at these rules, they've now locked out people who want to be independents cannot initially participate in party primaries, then run back as independents. If you look at what the amendment said to the law now, you must right from go, before parties conduct their primaries, decide, I am an independent. So one must not have been a member of any political party for at least 3 months preceding the date of the election. And then he must submit to the commission at least 60 days before a general election, the nomination paper. So that means that he has to actually have it before that he is going to be an independent. And they must, if you look at the number of days, 4 months before the general election, they must have notified the commission that they're going to be independent, given in their name and their symbol, and gotten their symbols approved. Now, when you look at that 4-month period, and nominations are carried out 3 months to the election, clearly, therefore, that the party survives as an independent ought to have already indicated to IEBC that I'm going to be an independent, this is my name, and this is my proposed symbol. So that therefore locks them out of participating in party primaries, because they can't. And if they're also supposed to be not to have been in a political party 3 months before the general elections, which is the 90 days deadline for holding party primaries, again, they cannot participate in party primaries. And I think this therefore now rules out that issue of forum shopping. You go for nominations, lose, and then start running to be an independent. Maybe you don't lose. Okay, they don't lose. They get wananyang'anywa ushindi, and then they can do that. Now they talk also, the rules also talk about party lists, and this has always been a very emotive issue for most political parties. And for clarity, it now says that anybody who participates in the party primaries cannot be in the list for nomination. Anybody who is presented as a candidate cannot also be presented in the party list for nomination. So that there must be 2 clear, distinct lists in terms of that. Of course, if you're looking at the proposed amendments to the Constitution, there will have to be amendment here if the BBI were to pass, because it's proposing that those with the greatest votes be the first in line for nomination for the top-up seats in the National Assembly and the County Assembly. So there will have to be some amendment to that. But right now, the law is that those who are candidates cannot be in the party list. Now, the party list is given out on the basis of proportional representation. The parties with more seats in the assemblies, whether it's the County Assembly, the National Assembly, or Senate, will get more spaces for nominating people. The lists should be presented, the names on the list should be presented in order of priority, so that the people you want nominated most are on top of the list, and you keep dropping them. So that is the way it's given, so that the commission, when they are nominated, start at number 1. They cannot just look at the list and randomly say, we are going to give number 15. The list presented is in order of priority, and the commission must have reason for not picking your number one. Sometimes it's because of gender, they don't need that gender. Sometimes because they're trying to get a PWD. Sometimes it's because they're trying to get some ethnic minorities and some marginalized groups on board, or trying to get some regional balance in place. So you might find indeed that your number one on your list has been left behind, but it's not left behind because they were leaving out number one. It's because the IBC also has several under considerations in coming up with the people who are going to be nominated. So that they should be picked in order of priority, but then again, the IBC can skip a person because they're trying to meet constitutional provisions on inclusive representation. So that must be understood. And I think that has been a thorny issue in the past, with people saying, how come this person was left out and this number 6 was picked? But it's because of that trying to meet constitutional provisions on inclusivity. So a party then must submit its list to the IBC. IBC will confirm that it is compliant with the law and the constitution, and then issue the party with a certificate of compliance. If they find that the list is not meeting the requirements, it will require the party to amend it. And you will see that as we go on that there are certain requirements. There are places where you need to give us PWDs. There are places you need to give us, like in Senate, you just give us 16 women only, then you give us 2 youths and 2 PWDs. So they must be compliant in that regard. Next slide. Yes, and again, the commission has the power to issue regulations around preparation of party lists, and they always do that so that people know what they have to comply with. The list that you give to IBC is valid for the term of that parliament. It's valid for the entire period, the 5-year period that election period covered, so that you will not be able to give in a new list midstream. The list that you provided is the list that will apply until the life of that parliament comes to an end. And the person who is being nominated or whose name is being included in the party list must be a member of your party as at the day you're submitting the list. And this has been a contentious issue, especially where parties don't have strong rules of their own, that some people join the party just a few months before and find their way to the party list, while some people have been party members for long and they can't find their way into the party list. So this is where a political party can, in its own nomination rules, strengthen this particular provision and provide a criteria. And I must say your rules were very strong on that. You have a criteria for somebody to make it to the party list. There's got to have been a party member for so long. If you're going to go to Senate, you've got to have this class of membership and things like that. So this is where the party can strengthen the rule for itself to safeguard the rights of its members and those who've actually committed to the party for a longer period of time. Now, this is it. It says the party list shall not contain the name of a candidate nominated for an election. So anybody who is a candidate cannot be on the party list. Anybody who is a candidate cannot be on the party list. And this is something we've got to keep very, very clear to our members, because sometimes people feel we went out, I stuck my neck out, I went through the violence of elections, I went through the harassment. Now I'm just out because I didn't make it. And my sister or brother who just sat on the sides is now in parliament. Inaletanga shida sana. And this is probably something that people need to consider, and probably the constitutional amendments will help us with, because it says those with a greater number of votes will now be able to be nominated. Probably a good thing, because they actually promote the party and bring you out there, and then they end up just sitting out for 5 years, while some people who okay, we understand where that is going. Now, a party list shall not be amended during the term of that parliament. Once you give it in, you cannot amend it at any time. But where the list is exhausted and you have an opportunity to fill a vacancy, say your member dies or is incapacitated or resigns or withdraws from your party, and that seat still belongs to your party, but your list has been exhausted. For instance, it was the 2 youth you presented for Senate and they have all been taken up. then at that time, IBC can actually request the party to bring in a substitute name to fill in, but you cannot amend the list. It is not right to try to amend that list. So let's get that clear. And the list should be given at least 45 days before the date of the general elections. So we see that the list of candidates is 60 days and the list of the party list is 45 days. So you're given 15 days window there to try and see what to do with the list in between your nominations and presenting the party lists. Next slide. Now, allocation of special seats is actually provided for in the Constitution, how seats are to be allocated. As we said earlier, these are the seats and the vacancies available as provided in the Constitution for party lists, for nomination. But it is IBC that has the power to actually now allocate the seats to specific political parties. And they look at the proportion of seats won, and then they decide who from your party list gets it in trying to also meet the inclusivity factors in the Constitution. This has been a problematic thing with people saying, oh, nimepitwa, oh, the IBC has given us fewer seats than we deserve. It has been a very contentious issue. And I think this is an area where political parties should actually require to meet, especially the political party liaison committee should require to meet with IBC before elections and settle the air, just settle the air in terms of how many seats, how are you going to allocate these seats? How are you going to calculate the proportion of seats? Because it's been a very contentious area. And I think it's something political parties need to take up before we vote so that it's so clear. But normally we wait, and then when the seats are allocated, then we start trying a litigation here and there. And sometimes there's also been complaints that there are not enough PWDs appointed. People being listed as PWDs are not actually PWDs, and vitu kama hiyo. So I think this is an area where political parties need to engage IBC, and we have the liaison committee. I think that can work very, very well in trying to iron these things out way before they are gazetted, and because once they are gazetted, it becomes litigation. So if we can engage before, it will be useful. And again, this is an area where if the proposed constitutional amendments were to see the light of day, representation now will not be on number of seats won, but it will be on number of votes gathered overally. So that means, therefore, that there'll be greater chances of political parties that never quite get to win the seat, but has a great showing to have more seats allocated to them. So this regime might change going forward, or it might stay as it were, but let's keep alive those factors in our minds as we go forward. But this is how seats will be allocated, and it's in line with the constitutional provisions. Next slide. So yes, we see there that the special seats will be declared within 30 days of the election result. So there's also a window even after the election to go and sit with IBC and understand what work they are going to do. Next slide. Now, this is where I was talking about reallocation of seats, where a political party, where a representative from a list dies, withdraws, changes parties, resigns, or is expelled, the party has the right, the seat still belongs to the party. So the party has the right to replace that individual with the next person on the party list. So once the party notifies IBC that we have expelled X and we want them replaced, IBC will not ask you for a name, but it will go back to your party list, look at the list and give it to the next person in line, because those lists are given out in order of priority. And when there are no more candidates, then the commission shall request you to nominate another candidate within 21 days. That's the only time you can add onto the list, when you have exhausted the candidates on your party list. But if the vacancy arises 3 months to the next election, then the vacancy stays vacant. It is not filled because it's too short a period to engage someone as an honorable member for that time. So that the vacancy will stay as it were. And where you are asked to replace somebody, especially when your list has been exhausted, and the commission asks you as a political party for a name, and you fail to do so within the 21-day period, it's a 3-week period within which you can replace the person. If you fail to do so, then that seat will remain vacant for the remainder of the term. It will not be given to another political party, but even you as a party will have lost that chance for the remainder of that term. You cannot come back and beg for it. So we've got to be alive to the timelines and the dates. As soon as we are sure our party list is exhausted and a vacancy is coming up, let us be very, very quick to appoint someone else into the party list to replace it. Otherwise, we lose that seat as a political party, and we lose the advantage that we had in whatever house of representation that we are talking about. Next slide. Now, settlement of disputes. We know disputes will always arise post nominations, post the creation of party lists, post creation of the list of candidates. There will always be disputes and people complaining. And nowadays we even have disputes around the list of aspirants. Even before we go to nominations, people are complaining already about how the list of aspirants was arrived at. So disputes are a key thing here. And it's something that we need to talk about. Now, we always have to remember that IBC has powers to listen to disputes arising from nominations and settlement of any electoral dispute. So I think this is something people normally forget, and most people would normally just go to the internal dispute resolution, then run political parties, then run to the High Court. But the IBC is a very good arbiter because the law provides that they must resolve your dispute within 10 days. Sometimes you go to the political parties tribunal and the elections arrives before they even hear your matter. Your matter is pending, natayari, the candidate has been given the certificate, they have gone. So the IBC is a shortcut because they must resolve that dispute within 10 days, and that is the law. And if there's an election coming up, then they must speed up the hearing to ensure before that nomination day or before whatever day it is, they have resolved your dispute. So the IBC is a shortcut, and it is a legal shortcut. It's a constitutional provision. They are given that power in the Constitution. And again, they are given that power in statute. So it is a very, very legal, valid position in law to go to the IBC to hear your dispute and solve some of these things. People have reduced the IBC to listening to disputes between candidates, like he's using our party symbol or blah, 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 but no one really takes it up. And this is an area where even issues of violence or breaching the code of conduct can be litigated. I think we remember Bungoma, it's Bungoma, where the two candidates for governor had a very bad altercation. There were gunshots. I believe someone died. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, but the matter was taken to IBC. They were fined 1 million, which was a small sum as far as I'm concerned for a governor candidate. But at least there was action and traction. So this is also a tribunal that can be used for settling even breaches of the code of conduct, so as to bring a peaceful environment around the electioneering process. But other than that, let's have the next slide. The law also requires political parties to have internal dispute resolution bodies. And the internal dispute resolution bodies are the first port of call for most, because you'll find that your nomination rules require that you first go through the IDRB before you can go to IBC or the political parties tribunal. So again, the IDRB is a strong institution, but the IDRBs are very slow in terms of clearing the volume of work. And maybe political parties need to re-engineer how the IDRBs work so that they're able to clear more work, maybe by devolution, devolving the branches out of the nation so that other cases can be had outside of the center. And then again, we have the political parties dispute tribunal, which has a broad jurisdiction. Their jurisdictions is to deal with political parties, to deal with candidates and political parties, coalition partners, and also issues arising out of party primaries. So they have a very broad jurisdiction at the political parties dispute tribunal. It's only that the political parties dispute tribunal tends to be very legalistic. It has adopted a very formal structure and procedure to their proceedings, which then slows down proceedings. And sometimes a lot of the cases expire or outlive their usefulness because time lapses before you get your decisions and things like that happen. So again, this is probably one tribunal that we need to be calling for its development, so that we have tribunals all over in every county, so to speak, so that we don't all have to come to the High Court in Nairobi and work till midnight. I've been in this tribunal at midnight, just trying to end on Saturdays and on Sundays, just because of the volume of work. So this is again another area where we can be calling for devolving of the functions of this tribunal to the counties, so that it serves us more effectively in terms of listening to disputes timelessly at that time. So that is also there as an opportunity to hear disputes from there. These appeals from the tribunal can go to the High Court, and from the High Court to the Court of Appeal. So we have a lengthy process in terms of dispute resolution for party primaries. Now, deregistration of a political party. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that a party that does not promote free and fair nomination of candidates and does not adhere to the law relating to nomination of candidates as provided in the Elections Act can be deregistered. Now, what does that mean? It means that nominations are a very critical aspect of the functions of a political party. And it's taken very seriously, to the point that when a party fails to adhere to its own nomination rules, to the statutory provisions, then it can actually be deregistered. And that's a very serious thing, because it means you lose your standing and status as a political party. It's not even you lose the right to field candidates, you lose the status of the political party. The party gets deregistered. That just shows how crucial nominations are, how critical a function nomination is, and how important it is for you as a political party to conduct free and fair nomination of candidates and to abide strictly by the law of nomination. So let's get that right. Let us know that if we had an active membership that were to agitate for deregistration, it may come to pass if we did not hold fair nominations. So that's how important it is. Next slide. Now, the political parties fund, and this is something we've talked about severally too before. Now, the political parties fund is, we all know, is a fund that's available to political parties that have a good showing at the last election, and they're given money to be able to conduct their activities. And one of the activities they are supposed to conduct is to promote the representation in parliament and in county assemblies of women, persons with disabilities, youth, ethnic and other minorities, and marginalized communities. That is a requirement of the law. So this is something that they must do. The other thing they must do with the fund is civic education in democracy and electoral processes. So if you are to get the political parties fund, you must ensure that your party uses it to promote the SIGs, the special interest groups, and to carry out civic education so that we are all up to speed on what's going on. And then it provides that not less than 30%, so at least 30% of the money received as the political parties fund must be used to promote the representation of parliament in parliament and county assembly of women, youth, PWDs, ethnic and other minorities. So how then, as a party, do we ensure that this happens? How then do you, as an election board and as the party leadership, ensure that this is done? You must have structures, you must have systems to ensure that this happens so that you're able to account for that fund and actually use that money to promote women campaigning, youth campaigning, PWDs, ethnic and other minorities. So this is a very critical part. It's a fund, it's the government promoting women, and it's part of the strategies towards achieving the truth and gender rules. So let's try and abide by this. And this again is the other thing. If you fail to do this, we can again ask for your deregistration. So again, a critical point in there. Next slide. So that is it for the existing law as we have it today. That's the regime under which, if an election were to be called in the next 2-3 months, that would be the regime under which we operate. That would be how we carry on our business as political parties towards nominating. That is how IBC would engage you. Now, we have pending in Parliament what we call the Political Parties Primaries Bill. This is being promoted by Senator Mwaura of the Jubilee Party, and it is pending. It has not gone through the first reading yet, so it is still pending. This bill is hoping to consolidate issues nomination so that it's together in one bill. But looking at the final bill that has found its way to the House of Senate, it doesn't consolidate all the rules. It provides for a very lean kind of thing. It talks about the organs, it talks about the types of primaries, and then it introduces offenses. What you will see missing here, remember there was a fund to be given to parties to help with elections. That is gone. It's no longer part of the proposal in this bill, but all is not lost because it's a bill. We will have the time where we can give our comments and we can still build into this bill and improve it. So it is good to know what is there so that when it comes to the time for us public participation, we are able as a political party and as a group of people to improve it by giving our comments. So this is what we have now, a very lean document, much leaner than we discussed when it was not yet before the House. And yes, a lot more can be done to beef it up, I believe. So it does provide for the organs of the party which are necessary for conducting party primaries. It talks of the governing body, it talks of the elections board, and it talks about the internal dispute resolution board, or whatever it's called. You find that these are already provided for in the Political Parties Act. The provisions in the Political Parties Act are not proposed to be deleted, so they still exist in pari passu with this. Then it provides for that the party must provide the name and specimen signature of person authorized to sign the nomination certificate. Again, this is something that's already existing in the Elections Act. So it's not building into, and it's, I don't know, it's just providing again what we already know exists. The thing that it does that's not in any of our laws right now is it provides a criteria for appointing people to the elections board of a political party. And the criteria is that one, the person must be a person of integrity, and secondly, the person must have at least a Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education certificate. And the person must be a party member and not an aspirant. Interesting. Is it the duty of this bill to define for political parties who sits in the elections board, or this is something that is well left to the nomination rules of each particular political party, knowing its place and stand in society at any time? Because these are things that are currently provided for in nomination rules by political parties. But now we are making it a statutory requirement that members of our electoral board must have KCSE certificates. And looking at the nomination rules of the various political parties, some of them recognize that there are people who did not certify themselves through the secondary school system, but are very instrumental in the party and are able to give in a lot of input. And some parties are quite comfortable to have people sitting in their EBs who do not have this certificate. So I don't know what our views are around having this provision as a proposed statutory provision and acting for political parties criteria for people who sit on their internal organs. I think that's now getting into our internal activities as a political party. It spells out the roles of the governing body as around the nominations and the role of the elections board. So it actually says the governing body will give out the registers, the elections board will confirm the register, give out vet aspirants and things like that. So it spells out the roles of the governing body and the elections board, which I think is okay if we need to. It also provides the qualifications for the chair of the IDRB as an advocate with at least 5-year experience, and provides that members have a KCSE certificate also. Again, this is making statutory the composition of internal party organs. Again, something there that we need to discuss and see whether it's something we would like to have. Next slide. So it also provides that a political party shall provide in its party constitution nomination rules. This already exists in the Political Parties Act, and it's a requirement that parties do this, and it's also part of what is in the Elections Act. So quite repetitive, if I may say so, but that's what is proposed there. And then it also provides for types of the party primaries that a party can hold. And it talks of the competitive and the non-competitive. And reading the act first, when they talk of non-competitive, they are referring to voting by delegates. Now, voting by delegates is not completely non-competitive. There is some sort of competition to it, but it's a closed room competition. So again, the definitions may not quite be meeting the requirements, and it seems to be defining a competitive, although they're not quite defined in the bill, but it seems to be defining a competitive party primary to be a primary where people vote, all members of the party participate in electing their candidates. But in a non-competitive, they are referring to voting by delegates. So that's what the two types of primaries that are provided for in this bill. Again, we would like to interrogate whether that distinction is a proper distinction, so to speak. And then they talk about where parties are in a coalition, you must file an agreement on the procedure for nominating your candidates. This has been a sticky issue where parties are in a coalition, but fielding separate candidates. Then it becomes very, very interesting in terms of what kind of coalition are we in. So it says here that before we go to the election in a coalition, file your agreement for the procedure on how you'll nominate your candidates. Yes, next slide. Now, another new thing that they set here is that it is the IEBC that will determine the party primaries date. So it is no longer a political party notifying IEBC that we want to conduct our primaries on this day. IEBC will specify the day or days on which political parties shall conduct party primaries. And the timelines are the same, 90 days, 45 days, but it is now taken away from political parties, and the power to decide the date, time is given to the commission. I do not know whether this is okay with political parties, but that's the proposal in the bill. Then it provides that that day, the day for nomination, shall be a public holiday. That's an interesting one because in the past, nominations have just happened as people work. So they're saying that will be a public holiday. And very interesting because it has to align with the Public Holidays Act as well, but that is provided, so it's going to be a public holiday. And then they go on to provide that employers must allow their employees to go and participate in the party primaries, and failure to do so, any employer who fails to do so commits a crime punishable by a fine of $500,000 or 6 months imprisonment or both. So that's very hefty. And I think it's actually trying to lend importance or credence to the nomination day as an activity that should be taken seriously by the entire country. So hopefully that then will structure party primaries to be a real part of the election process for all citizens, so to speak. Next slide. Yeah, so once the commission has decided the day or for party primaries for a political party, then the party has to then determine for itself the type of primary it's going to hold, where it's going to hold them, and also, of course, come up with a list of aspirants. So once the IBC says this, and you remember they are supposed to say it at least 90 days before the elections, then the party must 21 days before that day provide the commission with the information of the venue, the type of primary, whether contested, competitive or non-competitive, and also give them the list of aspirants. So that happens there. Then they go on now after that to talk about the registers. And I thought the registers would have come earlier in the bill because I'm already giving you a list of aspirants and we've not talked about the registers, but yes, there's provision for registers after that in the bill. So the order of the bill might just also have to be reconsidered. So it talks about the registers and it says a party must maintain national, county, constituency, and ward registers. And these registers must be accessible to the public. The register is certified by the governing body and is it what is used to determine who is eligible to vote and or vie as an aspirant for a party. Now, this is a marked difference from the current legal regime. In the current legal regime, the party registers are submitted to the registrar of political parties, who confirms that they are compliant with the law and that they verifies them as correct and then publishes them. In this instance, it is the governing body itself that confirms the registers and then uses them. And they must just make sure they're accessible to the public from the political party itself. So this, in a way, is giving control to the political party, but also is open to abuse because the party register can then be amended as we go on and no one would be none the wiser that has happened. So again, some kind of safety net and safeguard has been removed, but probably to make it easier for political parties to comply. I'd like to hear your views on that at the end of this. The register is to be posted at the venue where one can vote so that you're able to know this is where I'm voting. And it also provides that the political party must provide all the polling materials. So you'll see that in this bill, there's no requirement that the commission conducts the nominations on behalf of a party. There's no provision, therefore, that the commission can fund party nominations. It is left onto the party to conduct its own nominations at its own cost. Next slide. So it provides that in a non-competitive party primary where voting is by delegates, then the party must send the list of delegates to the commission before the party primaries are held. It must also send the procedure for appointing delegates and confirm that they have complied with that procedure. And that procedure must be found in the party constitution or nomination rules. So the nomination rules must clearly say, how do we get delegates, or the party constitution can do that as well. Before one can contest as an aspirant, it provides that the person must fill a self-declaration form. The declaration form must testify to your leadership and integrity capacities. And then one must also annex the academic certificates. And this is crucial now that all candidates must have a degree certificate. So you must annex your degree certificate and other certificates, a copy of the ID card, and ensure the nomination fees has been paid. The election boards are then to vet the applicants and prepare the list of applicants and send it to the commission. At least 21 days to the nomination date, as stated earlier, and the commission has to publish that within 7 days of receiving the list. Next slide. Now it provides for disputes, and it says disputes must be filed within 3 days, and all disputes must initiate as the IDRB, Internal Dispute Resolution Boards, and must be had within 30 days. Now, when you look at these 30 days, the nominations were held 90 days to the elections, and then party lists of candidates must be submitted 60 days, within 30 days of the nominations. Now, if the IDRB is going to take a full 30 days to hear matters, and if I filed it, say, on the 3rd day, it means my matter will be determined on the 33rd day. The list will have gone without my name. So I don't know, we need to tidy up the timelines there so that IDRBs hear matters much faster than 30 days, and we are able to meet the other timelines. From there, one may appeal to the political parties tribunal, and then from the political parties tribunal, you can go to the High Court and to the Court of Appeal still. Now, one new thing it introduces, and which might be of interest to aspirants, is that it provides that the political party will not submit a name of a person as a candidate for a constituency, ward, or whatever position that is being contested. As long as the matter is before the Internal Dispute Resolution Body or the Tribunal or the High Court, the provision here is being that no name will be submitted. Now, I don't know how this will play out in real life, because sometimes we find disputes going beyond the timelines, and IBC has to continue to organize an election. It will not wait for a money to give me a candidate to continue with the election. Do we as a political party run the risk of having no candidate just because somebody filed a dispute in court? Is that really justifiable? I think this is something that it might be good for the aspirants, but it might leave a political party exposed to a position where the party has no candidate in the election. So let's discuss that as well, because yes, it's good to give aspirants as much time, but is it good to disenfranchise a political party in the election? That's something we need to discuss if we honestly and think about. Next slide. Then, of course, it has the offenses. These offenses are actually the ones that were in the initial draft. So there's not much new there. They relate to party registers if you fraudulently change or destroy, blah, blah, blah. These are the offenses of obstruction, the offenses around voting materials, undue influence on candidates and other people who are voters, bribery, violence, aiding and abetting any crime around those elections. So those stay the same, and they all call for some random fines, sentences, and or both. Next slide. The other thing that is in the political parties' primary bills, and these are now found as miscellaneous provisions, are it provides a ceiling for nomination fees. So it says that the highest amount a party can charge their candidates, their aspirants, is this figure stated here. So that for president, the maximum amount a party can charge is 1 million. For governor, 500,000, for MP 250, and for MCA 50. You can charge less as a political party. All the bill is proposing is you cannot charge more. Again, this is also interfering sometimes, I think, to an extent with internal affairs, because what if my party is made up of people who can afford to pay more, and the party wants to raise money, because this is a time when the party needs funds to organize an election. So again, we need to discuss those. And then it provides that for special interest groups, they shall not pay more than 50% of the amount presented here. So women, youth, disabled, minorities will pay half of these figures, not more than half of these figures. So 1 million. So for president, a presidential candidate would pay 500,000. Governor candidate would pay 250, MP would pay 125, and an NCA would pay 25,000. So that's what is proposed in that bill. So a party can decide to charge less than this. For instance, a party can decide we're just going to charge 500,000 for president and nothing for MCA, depending on the party and how it feels. So you can charge less, and you must announce the nomination fees at least 14 days before the primaries. An aspirant who is appointing an agent must do so in writing. In fact, in this bill, the right to appoint agents is now belonging to the candidate as an individual, and the political party can also appoint their own agents to watch over the nominations and or the general election. Commissions the commission IBC may outsource civic education. The power to conduct civic education right from the Constitution to Elections Act is with IBC. So it provides here that commission not having the power, the capacity to do so, may wish to outsource civic education, and they may also accredit other institutions to conduct primaries for political parties. Next slide. Yeah, and then it requires parties to come up with affirmative action policies to promote inclusion of special interest groups. And it talks of ensuring that like the polling center is user-friendly. It can be have wheelchair access, people who are deaf can get access, assistance and things like that. So that's when I read the affirmative action policies, it was more of promoting inclusion of special interest groups in terms of access and making their life easier, rather than affirmative action policies to ensure representation is 2/3 as per the requirement and 5% for PWDs. Now, where a candidate dies or resigns from the party or something happens to him, before the date for submitting the list to the commission, the party has a right to replace that name. After that, then the right is gone. So that right only exists before the date for submission of lists to the commission. And then it proposes to delete Section 31 of the Elections Act that deals with nomination of party candidates. This is what we discussed earlier about nomination of party candidates, having a party to submit the list, the names and everything. So it proposes to delete that and have that enacted here as a part of this party primaries bill. Next slide. So yes, so that is it for the existing law, and that is it for the bill that is proposed in Parliament today. And I would say, looking at the two sets of law, that the current laws are more cogent and exhaustive than what is being proposed in the party primaries bill. And the party primaries bill doesn't consolidate all the laws relating to nominations, party lists and everything. It only focuses on types of primaries, the offenses and the organs. We saw when we were discussing earlier that the Elections Act is very, very deep in terms of what a party can do, number of days, what IBC can do. So I don't know that this law is sufficient to fill the gap in terms of party primaries. I don't know that this law is sufficient to take over what we have currently. And I don't know that it proposes anything better than what we have currently. So I'd like to hear your views for that so that we know how to move forward in terms of preparing for nominations and preparing to engage the Senate on this party primaries bill going forward. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to me. It was an honor and a pleasure. Asante.
Thank you very much, Roslyn, for taking us through this comprehensive session. I must believe that, listening to you, we don't get tired. Every day, you always have something new, but very interesting. And I must admit that I am always learning something new from you every day. When we compare the current regime rules and guidelines on party primaries, comparing it to the one that has been taken to Parliament, I want to strongly believe actually the current one that we have, it is much, much more exhaustive, and there's room for improvement, but it is very inclusive, I must say that. The one in Parliament right now is a little bit restrictive, and it might open a can of worms, and it is giving room for certain things to be abused, and things that unless a political party is very, very keen, some of the things might not be very good for the candidate. But nevertheless, because of time, I think I want to open this session to the election board members. They have heard you very, very clearly because you have touched on issues that concern the political party. You have talked about the Political Parties Act. You have talked about the Elections Act, and you have talked about the role of IEBC. You have equally talked about, the role of the candidates, or rather the aspirants themselves. And more critically, you have talked about the issue of timelines, starting from now, the issue of timelines. And this is where many political parties get caught up with time. So the elections board, they have heard you, and I would like them now to give their comments, or rather their questions to you, so that you can actually clarify on those very, very important issues. So thank you very much, Roslyn. And the floor now is open for a plenary. And let us have people, let's see people who have got their hands up. And Nathaniel, I'm sure you are on the floor. You can try to moderate their hands up.
Okay, thank you, Edie, for this opportunity. I can see the floor. On the floor, we have the chairperson of the elections board, Honorable Salim Busaidi. The floor is yours, Chairman.
Thank you, Nathaniel, and thank you, Roslyn, for a good presentation. My comments are as follows. Your last comment, you asked whether this bill is sufficient enough to cover everything vis-a-vis the current laws that are in place. And I say it doesn't. There are few things which are in this bill which can be picked specifically in terms of the timelines. I think it will eradicate or arrest the situation that we are currently in, where there are some political parties in the business of nomination. They offer nomination, and they are good in terms of having to negotiate once somebody misses out on any nomination in their party. We have a very good example in Lamu, where one of the parties gave out a certificate to a losing Jubilee aspirant, and they gave a nomination certificate to that person, agreeing to get any nomination slots. And by good chance, they got 2 nomination slots. And we have now in Lamu people from one from Kajiado and one from Kiambu who are nominated on this party because of that loophole. Nothing against people from Kiambu or Kajiado for that matter, but these nomination slots for the assembly specifically should serve the people of that county. That is my view. Secondly, in terms of the register being controlled by the governing council, there is no way that you can verify such a register, in terms of now there will be a lot of crisscrossing across parties, infiltration. It is open to abuse. That is not a good thing, because once the register is submitted to the ORPP and the IEBC, it should be something that can be verifiable, credible, because all these problems that we are seeing during nomination is because not a single party so far has been able to use a proper verifiable register. Hence, you find a lot of complaints, a lot of fighting, and the fallout thereafter. The good thing is, which I picked, and we need to look at it in detail, is the timelines might lock out this party hopping at the last minute. My final, because of time, my final comment, yes, we have the laws in place, but there is a problem, a very big one, in terms of implementation. We have seen also IEBC, they are not good in implementing these laws. They have a leeway of choosing who to replace, or as you say, there are a lot of things that play out during nominations, but they are also not taking cognizance of what is on the ground. What I've mentioned before, the nominations of the two people from other counties. Though we also, as political parties and as candidates, a lot of people were not aware during the last election that you could actually go to IBC, as you said, which was a quicker way to resolve a dispute. In terms of once a nomination list is published, you had the option of going to object to those nominations. A lot of people did not do this the last election. I'm hoping that is going to be strengthened. And I'm hoping also, while they are strengthening this, they strengthen a very important aspect, which is ignored tremendously, the agents who are in a polling station or who are in a counting hall. There was a lot of lapse in the last general election. Thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thank you so much, Chairman Busaidi, for those comments. On the floor, we have Honorable Basil Mwakiringo. The floor is yours. Basil? Can Basil hear us?
Okay. Hello?
If you're ready, proceed.
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed, OS.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Madam Margaret, our ED, and Rosalind Odede for that insightful presentation. I think my submission is only one, that to avoid the infiltration of candidates from other political parties during nominations, there should be strengthening and lobbying in Parliament so that the IEBC is given enough resources to conduct primaries on only one day, so that we avoid infiltration and mismanagement of this exercise by other political parties when we have staggered nomination days. So that would be my submission, because we have a lot of infiltration of candidates from other parties so that they choose a weaker candidate who will be beaten at the final voting. Number two, I think we parties should have a minimum number of period a member or a candidate should have been in the party before he or she is given a certificate to vie or a candidate from any political party. I think, to me, like when I was in Kanu before, even if you went back to Kanu, if you had left it, you are given period of 6 months to see if you have really reformed. So the same should happen to our political parties. Other than having somebody who has been rejected on another party, we accept him on board without knowing whether he has he will stand with us throughout or not. So I think we should stand firm and use that as a tool to avoid infiltration from other political parties. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, OS Basil, for those comments. On the floor, we have Wilfred Muliro, a member of the Elections Board. Please proceed. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, moderator, the presenter, Madam Odede, and our ED. I think I also want to agree with the ED that I've learned a lot, especially on the fact that you can actually shorten the aspect of disputes by seeking the IEBC way. And also the fact that there is a bill that suggests a raft of ideas that are supposed to fill the gaps. But having said that, I would like to comment on a few things. I begin with what Chairman Saidi noted. And I think it touches on what our organizing secretary has said. I believe that the beginning of what Bwana Mokiringo is talking about is a register. That if political parties can have verifiable, credible registers, and as the presenter has said, that belongs to the party, then you can weed out the idea of infiltration. Because even if we do it on the same day, I remember at one time, I think during the last election, the day we had our elections is the day in Bungoma, is the day Fort Kenya was having the elections. And there were a lot of disruptions where we were sharing centers. The violence from the other party spills over to the other party. And I think it all boils down to the register issue. And looking at the new suggestions, I don't know whether the presenter truncated that. I've not had time to look at the new bill. It's the first time I'm hearing this from our presenter. But it looks like they have identified the problems, but the suggestions maybe are lofty. Because one is a problem of financing. When they cap it and try to enter into political parties, they are treating a disease that has been there always. The highest bidder buys the party and automatically renders the idea of party primaries useless, because there are people who will follow the routine, pay the amount, campaign, but already there is a heavy financial at a level of even, I think in some of the elections across, at the level of governor, you'll find that whoever has given more money. So how do we treat that idea of the highest bidder in political parties? Maybe if we cap it, it kills two birds with one stone, levelizes the field. I think even at national level, we are having conversations on how we can cap the campaign financing, so that it is too expensive for you to be a leader in this country. And then the second thing on the register, I think, what I saw very good from the proposal is that apart from having a verifiable, credible register, I think the pillar of that register is accessibility and how it is known, just like the IBC does. It is open that we can go at the level of even the polling center to go and confirm whether you are actually within that. So if they suggest that it should be availed at national, county, constituents, even go up to the polling center, I think they have identified the problems there. And also another issue that I think may be a reverse of what a contradiction within what you have presented concerning the new bill is the idea that now removing the register from the register of political parties. I say this for one reason, that the issue of register for all political parties needs a centralized area of verification. For one reason of duplication, that we noted, we as EB at one time, that we don't know what happens, that you'll find that you are today morning, you are a member of ODM, in the evening, you are a member of Jubilee, while actually in your mind, you are a member of ANC. So if we have a centralized way of checking duplication, then it will be better in that way. I would just add up to what the presenter suggested, which is very good, I think. We need to devolve the idea of dispute resolution so that we can kill two birds with one stone again. One, it enables those who are not resourced. It gives them level field for you to travel, find a place to stay in Nairobi, and you are a candidate and you are waiting for your case. If we devolve that, as Odede, the presenter suggested, I think is wonderful in that manner. Internal, even dispute resolution should be in a way devolved. I think with the beauty of our ANC new system is that in a way it has staggered the elections process. That we have currently, we are actually involved in recruiting the entire level of election coordinating panels. Some of them are in the meeting here. It's a form of devolution, you know, from up down there. I think I agree with that in that case. Then lastly, sorry for taking many words. Lastly is the type of primaries. I feel that it may not be out of this world to be specific on the types of primaries, for the reasons that we have had. In fact, there already exist very many types of primaries that are not known, but we know they exist. For instance, where do you put the idea of negotiated or consensus nominations? We have the system, as you say, the delegates, then we have the competitive elections. So we need to be very specific on that. My suggestion is also that finally is financing. I think if the IBC, it's a good idea, the IBC can be requested and it manages elections of political parties. But if, because of exigencies of finances, I suggest that where that bill should focus mostly is, can the government or parliament or even the IBC be able to finance a part of the election process of the parties by way of financing the activities of the elections boards of political parties? In that way, I think parties will be able to stand on their own if the finances are not forthcoming. Just to confirm for us, lastly, Madam Modede, is please kindly confirm whether the issue of degree for MCS still holds and the MPs. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you so much, Wilfred. I don't see any other hand on the floor. If members, you have difficulties in raising your hand, you just, there's a button written more on the bottom of your screen. You can be able to raise your hand. In the meantime, okay, I can see the Vice Chair of the Elections Board, Isaac Litali. Please, the floor is yours, proceed. And if Honorable Basil Mwakringo, you have any follow-up questions, we'll take them later. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you for the presentation and all protocol observed. I do not have much to add to what my colleagues have said, other than just saying that this was a very insightful presentation. And I hope this presentation will be shared with us so that as an elections board, we can interrogate it in our meeting. And also, if we come up with issues or questions that we would like to raise, how do we channel those concerns, especially? I would like some clarification on that, how we can raise our concerns and to whom and within which timelines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Litali. I don't see any additional hands on the floor. perhaps we can give Rosaline Odede a chance to make responses to the comments that have been made. Senior Counsel, please proceed.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Thank you, honorable members and participants. I think most comments were not really questions. Most were actually just comments to kind of improve or lift into the bill. The chair of the election board, Honorable Salim, raised a lot of pertinent issues. I think this issue of political parties hawking nomination certificates is so rife. It is so rife in our system that there are people who just sit there. I'm told some even establish parties just to sell certificates at the right time. So it's something that a conversation that we need to have a lot more. And as someone said, I think it was either Basil or Wilfred who said that IBC needs to pull up its socks because they are the ones letting us down in terms of implementation or ensuring compliance. So some of these activities are actually very, very shady, are actually almost illegal, but they go on, we know about it and it happens. And I think, as you say, at the ward level, you want representation from someone when you're ground, someone who knows what the people want, somebody who knows what the people feel, somebody who understands us as a community, as a people. So it is very sad when those nominations are handing it out to people who have no affinity with the community they are hoping to represent. And I think that's sad. And that's why I was saying that it's important that the political liaison committee and IBC thrash out issues of how they will pick from the party list before we get to that party list stage. So these are things we can use to improve the electoral system. The law is there. There's weakness in application, and we need to kind of tighten the application so as to comply with what was intended by the drafters of the law at the time it was drafted. You talk also about the registers and how they need to be controlled, and I cannot agree more. That registers need to be protected from abuse. We have to be sure the register is what left the party and not something that has been pulled out from under the table at the last minute, because we see people actually joining a political party today and becoming a candidate. And it's very interesting because there are other party members who don't get that kind of recognition. And I think that ties in, I think, with what I think it's Wilfred who said about people who own the party. They finance it to the extent that they own the party, so that lazima wapewe tu certificate manake ametoa pesa zake to fund the party. And I think that's where, again, political parties need to find some sort of sustenance. How do we reach a level of sustainability within political parties so that we don't need to use handouts to run our activities? We don't need to have political capture or individual capture of our political parties by people just because they have the finances. I think those are conversations outside of elections. Sustainability, how do we make ourselves manage our systems? Can we go into some sort of enterprise? Can political parties engage in enterprise so that the party can be self-sustaining? I think those are conversations post today that we can have as political parties so that we avoid that financial capture by individuals. So good points raised there, I think. IBC, pull up your socks. The issue of the IBC tribunal is there, but we need to remember that in the draft bill, constitutional amendment bill, they are taking away the power of IBC to hear and determine election disputes. So if BBI goes through, then section 88G, I think, will be deleted. Article 88G will be deleted from the Constitution, and that's where we derive the power of IBC to hear election disputes. The reasoning there is that IBC should be conducting elections and they should be wasting time sitting as a tribunal, but they were actually a very quick avenue for disposing of certain little issues around campaigns and campaigning and codes of conduct and things like that. They really did well in that regard. and they were able to churn out their decisions very, very quickly. They were very useful, I must say. Agents need strengthening. Yes, agents are the backbone of a credible election and protecting an election for a particular individual or party. If you don't have an agent on the ground who knows what they are doing, you're doing nothing. I've been an election observer, and I found agents there who are just chatting. They're just sitting there and chatting on their phone. They don't know what's going on. Somebody is being slipped 2 voting ballot papers. They don't even see it because they don't understand why they're there even as agents. So one of the things maybe as a political party, you need to invest in is training your agents to understand their role. Training your agents to know what they're doing there so that they are able to actually protect, guard, and protect and safeguard the authenticity of the vote that will come out at the end of the day of that polling station. So again, yes, let's have agents, but strengthen them, empower them, let them know why they're there, and let them actually do what they were sent out to do. Most of the agents just sit there and they're like, see, and they don't understand why they're there. So training of agents is crucial. Strengthening agents is indeed very, very crucial. I like the idea from Honorable Basil, the organizing secretary, when he says that let IBC conduct the elections and the primaries and let them do it on the same day so that party hopping will not be there. We are there. You cannot say I lost in the ODM one, wacha nikimbie Amani, nimeluza Amani, wacha nikimbie Jubilee. That will not be there. I think that would be a cure. And under the current regime, that can be done under the current legal regime. That is the law, and it can actually be applied if political parties agreed to all require IBC to conduct their primaries, and then IBC having multiple requests would then hold the primaries on a single day. So I think that's a good proposal there and something worth considering, and having discussions over with those who kind of do this sort of thing. And then you said parties should have a minimum period of having been a member before being given the right to participate even as an aspirant. I think this is a crucial and probably a non-negotiable item that should be in your rules. Because there's no reason why a newbie should come in. Somebody who just joined our party yesterday should come in and get a top seat, and some of these people who have grown the party, who have nurtured the party, struggle to even get some sort of recognition. So it's just a ranking and pecking order thing that exists in every institution, club, organization, association. And I don't think it would be viewed discriminatory. It would be something one has earned over the time and period that they have served the party. So it wouldn't amount to discrimination. It is positive discrimination in favor of those who have put in their hours and time. And I think it's only fair. And I think that's the position in your money party. Somebody must have certain a number of years before they can be given some sort of recognition. So that was it from Basil. Then we had Wilfred with several proposals and several observations. He liked the idea of IBC hearing disputes and shortening the period. He loved the ideas of having verifiable and credible registers, party registers, because this is where rigging starts if the registers are not credible. He said the bill is not quite sufficient, doesn't know whether I over-truncated it. I didn't truncate it overly, I just presented what it has. It's actually much leaner than what we were discussing before it went to the House. The other one had several other proposals that actually beefed it out and made it commendable. A lot has been weeded out, I think, in political negotiation as it went forward. A lot was shaved off, and now we have a document that I think does not live up to its billing, that does not serve the purpose for which it's intended. And we are probably better off staying with the laws that we have now and picking out the 2, 3 beautiful things there and putting into the Elections Act. You talked about the accessibility of the registers and the need to have the registers available to people to examine. And I think that cannot be gainsaid. It is very, very crucial. Because as you say, you could find today you believe you're a member of a money, Like if you go online and check, you might just find you're still a member of another party, or you might find you belong to a party you didn't even know existed. And that's a very interesting thing that happens every time you put in your ID number and then you see the party coming up, you're like, what? I didn't even know this party existed. So yes, let the registers be accessible. Let people be able to cross-reference and verify. And as you say, the custodian should be the registrar of political parties, because in that regard, then everybody has access. I do not have to come to your political party to access your register. I just go to the RPP and I'm able to find out if I belong into a party I don't know about. Devolving dispute resolution is a good thing and you support it, and I think I do too. I think it actually does a lot for people. As you raise it, imagine a candidate has to come to be in Nairobi for maybe 2-3 weeks. Sisa hizo ground imeharibika. By the time you go up, your opponent has taken over your zone. Manake ulikuwa Nairobi kutafuta certificate, na yeye ameshikilia ground anajipromote. So yes, I think if we can devolve dispute resolution, you can still be in your constituency as you fight for your rights and space. Types of primaries, you mentioned them, and I like that you bring up the negotiated negotiated democracies that we have, where people reach consensus and agree, let X, Y, kwa sababu hivi, or so and so is stronger in this, can handle this. So yes, we need to actually beef up the types of primaries. And I think in the initial draft, we had much more in terms of types of primaries. These have been reduced to competitive and non-competitive, which is not quite defining of all the processes that we can have. Financing, can government finance primaries or activities of election boards? I think those are good suggestions, and we need to take this up with the powers that be, especially Parliament. Parliament can enact that into the Elections Act, and then it would have to pass. So these are things we can lobby, those who are sitting, our members who are already in the House, we can lobby for inclusion of this kind of amendments into the law. Then you finally asked me to clarify whether MCAs and MPs will require degrees. As up to now, as we speak, there has been no amendment. There has been no deletion of that amendment that was put in 2017. It exists, and it provides very clearly that for clarity, members of parliament and members of county assemblies are required to have a degree. And then it provides further that that provision shall not come into place immediately, which was 2017, but shall come into effect at the next election, general election. And so here we are approaching the next general election. That section still exists in the law, in the Elections Act. I think it's either section 22 or 23, one of the two. It is right there. Just go back, refer to it, read it. You will find that it is still the law that one needs a degree, and unless something else comes up, it will be the law. I know when the constitutional amendment bill was brought out, people raised the issue of, oh, has it introduced degrees for MPs and MCAs? And people looked at the bill and said, no, there's nothing around that. Yes, there was nothing in the constitutional amendment bill. It's a statutory provision. It's in the Elections Act, and as we speak, it is a provision and requirement of the law. So tujipange na hiyo, ama we lobby Parliament to again delay its implementation. Either way, it is existing. And then Isaac asked that we share the presentation. I think that will be done through CMD. They always do. I think Margaret can confirm that they always do. And I didn't quite understand the issue of how do we channel our views. Is it our views about the public primaries bill? If that is the question, then we channel those through the Senate when they call for public participation. Then you have an opportunity to go and get your views known. If it's follow-up from today's presentation in terms of you need clarity around an issue or two, Margaret, you're free to call me up. I'll give you that advice free of charge.
Thank you.
Asante Nisana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Roslyn. I just wanted to make two comments. Comment number one is regarding your presentation on the existing legal regime. And I think as a political party, as the ED mentioned earlier, we are compliant in most of the acts, including the Elections Act, the Political Parties Act, and we are continuously complying with the existing requirement incumbent upon us. We are always in constant touch with the political parties registrar, including IEBC. And I think from your presentation, the issue of the timelines as we gear to the next general election, it's something that we are going to make sure we are keen on so that we are not caught up with time and all this. I think there's something you presented on the eligibility criteria for aspirants who seek to vie on our ticket. Our constitution recently, which was amended, we have a new constitution, has provided for all these. And I think, as you rightfully noted, we have come up with a very latest and up to standard nomination rules, including the rule book that is entrenched in our constitution. Now, on the political parties primaries bill, and as most of my colleagues have said, I think the bill crowds the space for political parties. It does not give room for latitude. There is no leg room for us to breathe in a few areas. And I could say it is a bit of double legislation or over legislation, as we can see it. But there are very good things that are pointed out, that I've noted in that bill that my colleagues have not mentioned. Allow me to mention a few. The idea of the public holiday is a good idea. If we could pick this probably and entrench it in the Elections Act so that it is a requirement that during party primaries, it is a public holiday so that we give room for Kenyans to exercise their political rights, then this is a good idea. Imposing fines on employers who don't want their employees to participate in political processes, especially the primaries, I think it's also another good idea. Because you find many employers, especially those who are working within the informal jobs, maybe those who are working with the Indians or others, they are restricted from participating in this political process, which is an entrenched right in the Constitution. So I think this is a good idea in the bill, and we must find it very progressive. I've also noted the idea of the disputes in the bill regarding aspirants have to launch disputes with the IDRC within 3 days, and then the PPDT, they can make appeals. And then the bill has provided that a party cannot submit a name to the commission until the dispute is heard and determined. And as you rightfully noted, I think this will be too restrictive. It will disenfranchise our party and political parties from presenting candidates. And you might find that is a zone. It could be a political strategy by our opponents to make sure that we don't field strong candidates. So I don't find this progressive. Personally, I'll be opposed to this bill, and I don't think it is a progressive proposal. Regarding the miscellaneous provisions in the bill, there are these nomination fees that have been provided, and the bill has been the bill has provided capping, the maximum cappings. I don't think that is progressive enough, because political parties should be given the latitude to determine their own internal nomination fees. And in this case, the governing organ of our party is the Elections Board. They should be able to sit down, because they are semi-autonomous, to come up with the nomination fees. And fortunately, our political party, even in the 2017 general elections, we provided certain waivers to the special interest groups. It was about 30%. I think the ED will confirm the figure. And this was to encourage the participation of the youth, women, PWDs, and the ethnic minorities. So I don't think it is proper to provide the maximum cappings in the miscellaneous provision in this bill. And finally, I have a concern, which I've been raising in many meetings, regarding Section 25 of the Political Parties Act on the Political Parties Fund. I think there was a legislation, there was an amendment that was done in that section, which disenfranchised our party ANC from benefiting from the fund. You remember they amended in the statute laws amendments, they removed the and, the or to, and replaced with and. And we were disenfranchised as a political party. And MACU, we tried to negotiate this in the NASA coalition agreement, because it was put there that since we ceded our right to ODM to run for, to carry the flag bearer or for the presidential ticket, we were entitled to the money that would be appropriated to ODM. But since then, ODM has not complied. They have not been generous enough to grant us a share of what they receive from the exchequer. And to this date, even though we are not considering strongly litigation, we feel that it has informed us that going forward, we will be choosing carefully our coalition partners. Otherwise, thank you so much. Those are the comments I have.
Thank you so much, Kadima, Nathaniel, for that. So maybe, Rosalind, you want to respond just before we wind up?
Okay, yeah, Nathaniel, you raise interesting points, especially the one that you ended with. Yeah, coalitions have been a tricky issue around the political parties fund, especially post the amendment to Section 25. This made parties within the coalition subservient to the party who got the fund, and it's been a big challenge, and I think something that should have been mediated at some point. I think political parties should pick up mediation as a way of discussing some of these issues, because generally what went to ODM included its coalition partners, but ODM has decided to interpret it to mean it's their money, which I think is very unfair to its coalition partners, and something that would have been mediated positively had you people embraced a mediation at that point. Not everything needs to go to litigation. Sometimes we can sit, give, take, and agree on issues. But very sad, and I think for you, the lessons learned are very good as a party, because you say, therefore, you've now learned your lessons, and next time, either you will choose your coalition partners wisely, but I'd also advise, write your coalition agreement properly. Make sure you dot the I's and cross the T's in your next coalition agreement, so there's no doubt, there's no room for doubt around some of these little things. So yes, coalition agreement will also be a determining factor going forward. Your comments on the bill, I think, are all spot on. I think they actually confirm certain positions. And as you're trying to pick, you can see that the positives building over what we currently have are very few, so that even if we did not pass the primaries bill, we'd still have a better election under the current regime, I believe, than we would just under the bill as it is now. But let us not leave it there. If the bill comes up for public participation, let us put our comments in, so that we either build into it, or we build into it, so that we improve it into a better document if we can, or if not, then we ask that we stay with the current regime, as it were. Yeah, but I think something can be done to it. A lot went away. We discussed this bill, I think Margaret can remember, when it was still not in the House, and it was it provided a lot more. When I was told the bill had been published, and I went to the parliamentary website and looked it up, and that was, I think, last year, I was so disappointed, because it was a pale shadow of the document we had been discussing. And we did not just discuss it, we discussed it and added improvements, hoping that we'll get a much better thing. We got something much less than even what we were discussing at that time. So let's engage on it. Let's continue to engage and see what happens if the bill finds its way into the order paper before the next elections. As I said, the proposer is also having problems in his party, so it may just collapse with all that. But let's hope something happens to it that can be useful to us. So thank you so much, Nathaniel, for your comments. At least I'm happy to know. And I know, because I looked at your nomination rules, and I think that you have done quite a bit to make sure your internal documents are in order. And I wish you all very, very well in the next general election. Asante.
Thank you, Rosalind. As we wind up, and on your last comment, where you have said that you've looked at our guidelines and they are good, I want to say thank you very much. And we want to be compliant in each and every area. That's why we keep checking with the registrar of political parties and checking with IBC, because 2022 Musalia Mudavadi will be the president of this country, and therefore his party must be in order. His party must be in order. So thank you so much for supporting us. And just as I wind up, I just want our members to know that one of the issues that was mentioned, that to avoid having people paying a lot of money to the party to own it, this is where we tell our members that they have to be members, and there's always a membership fee. So if members pay their membership fee, their annual subscription, then they will have a stake in the party. And if they just want free things, then you'll get people who will come in to run the party, and they will have a voice in the party. So please encourage our members out there to be paid up members of the party. The issue of training agents, Roslyn, you have said it is critical. And I want to attest to this, that it is very, very true. If I give an example of Matungu, in Matungu, we took time and we trained our agents, and we empowered them, we strengthened them. And the success of Matungu was because of our agents. And actually, that's why we won that seat. So we need to tell the elections board members that we need to start identifying our agents in good time. And lastly, as we wind up, the issue of timelines, the elections board members who are here, you've heard the timelines. We want to be compliant in each and everything, so let us maintain on the timelines. Thank you very much. Thank you, CMD. And I want to hand over the meeting back to Isaac Kenya. Thank you for attending, members. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie. And sorry for that, I couldn't join you for the meeting in the morning session, but I hope that you've been, you had a very fruitful deliberations. Unfortunately, Isaac has stepped into a different meeting, and I'll just pick it up from where he had left. And let me take this opportunity to thank everyone for making time to attend today's meeting. And to Roslyn, thank you so much for the wonderful facilitation. And Ms. Ndanye, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you in our meetings and having you to moderate these sessions and put things straight as they are. So from us here in CMD-Kenya, just to say asante sana for availing your time this afternoon. And I hope that you will continue engaging even as we move further towards the 2022 general elections. Let me just take now this opportunity to just officially wind up and close the meeting. And until next time, asanteni sana, and we'll continue engaging. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and we are free to leave at our own pleasure.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.